Welcome back, my little creature features, to
What to watch now?
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. Coming to you live from the corner of my broken bed. I'm finding it's a little easier to record if I just sit on the slumped corner of the bed, like really up close to my desk and computer. So yeah, wedged over here. Today's movie is kind of cosmic in many ways. For one, I have said time and time again, and I'll just keep saying it, I'm thinking I've got to be like psychically connected to cinema, because a common thing that I'll experience is I will be thinking of an actor, and like the next day, and it will be a very obscure actor, they will pop up in an episode of like Lost that I didn't even know they were in. And or I'll just think of someone, I'll be like, oh, Dakota Fanning, I'll just think of her, and I'll IMDb her page, and like right then she's announced being a part of an iconic movie that people have been waiting, like a book to movie situation. So I think about that a lot. But something else that's been happening lately is, like, if I think about a couple of movies that I'm interested in, they'll pop up on Netflix like a month later. It's really weird. And a couple movies that I've been talking about recently are from that mental request, I guess, to the universe. And so that's one layer. The other layer is, I guess this isn't so much cosmic, just therapeutic, but I had a motherfucking rough day. You know when you just don't feel like your fucking self, you lose all hope, you get real depressed, you cry, you dance to the theme song of Zoom. You know that song that's like, come on and zoom, come on and zoom, come on and zooma, 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 zoom, zoom, zoom. It's like my favorite song to just randomly get pumped to. It's so catchy. I don't know why. Anyways, so I was like, what film will embody my therapeutic comfort right now? And I'm like, okay, well, it's got to be funny. I do love me a little bit of horror when I'm sad. Not in a, like, dark way, but something comedic. You know what I mean? And this movie that we're going to be talking today embodies all of that. And, technically, the creatures that exist in this movie come from the cosmos. So, as you can see, many layers going on. Today we are talking about evolution. Honestly, a sleeper. Like, people do not talk about this movie enough. They don't give it credit. It doesn't come up in any lists of any way. But anytime I've ever seen anyone watch it, they've had a great time. It's one of those movies that you could easily have replaying on TBS or HBO over and over again. Again, I always say one of my favorite, like something that characterizes a favorite movie to me is its rewatchability. And for me, this is it. So, the essential idea behind it is that a meteor hits the Earth, and some people stumble upon it, and this meteor is containing life, and life seems to grow at an extremely rapid rate where it starts to endanger the public. And there's a little bit of science in it. There's a whole lot of fucking horror from people dying from these creatures coming into existence, and a lot of comedy. Like, that's something I really like. That one thing I think it's weird. I have only come to love horror recently within the last year. I used to hate it, want to have nothing to do with it, and little did I know some of my favorite films embodied it. I think while there's many genres and ways you can go about viewing horror, one that's underrated and I think they should make more of is the ones where, like, you know, where you say out loud, like, oh, when someone gets eaten and you kind of love that they got eaten. A great example, one of my top 3 favorite, I guess, people being eaten moments. Welcome back to my list of top people being eaten moments. And one of them is the almost alligator-like creature that pops up from the golf course and eats the dickhead that was being previously mean to our lovable character Wayne, who is played by an even more lovable Seann William Scott. By the way, Seann William Scott is like America's treasure, but they kind of got bored of him and they threw him in the trash and they kicked the dust over them. but, like, fuck them because he's still a treasure. He never stopped giving A-plus performances and being really goofy and lovable and funny. He makes idiocy relatable and likable. And that's truly a skill, especially considering, like, in real life, I'm sure he's not. He's probably totally coherent. Anyway, so let's go into the amazingness of this movie. Of course, it starts with our lovable Seann William Scott, a.k.a. Wayne, and it's so great because when you first watch this out of context, you're like, what the fuck is he doing? He pulls up a random car to an abandoned building. By the way, how many places exist where there's just a random building? Like, what happened here that no one else has left? There's no neighbors. Is this from, like, when America's, what was it called? The Manifesto? What was it fucking called? You know, when everyone was like, it's our duty and our right to go across America and, like, claim different places of land and stuff. Is that from that era? Did someone exist? Is this someone's, like, scary golden compass children harboring shed? If you know what I'm talking about, then tweet me. The link is in the description below. Anyways, he goes to this random shed and he lights it on fire. And he puts a mannequin in it, and he's in a firefighter's outfit. But if you're not super familiar with those outfits, they don't, like, come to mind very easily. He just looks like he's wearing a weird neon yellow outfit, and he's basically practicing to be a firefighter. But what's so funny about this is I'm pretty certain when you're training to be a firefighter, you don't actually light fires and practice with actual flames in your free time for the test. So it's really funny, goofy, silly moment. And he gets out of there, saves the person, but to be fair, he is being saved because when the fire gets going, he's only surrounded by desert. So it's not going to spread anywhere. It doesn't have enough substance to. But out of the sky, as he's being overdramatic and having his hero moment, he sees a meteor land and crash, destroy his poor car, destroy the shed. So clearly the one fire is no longer a problem anymore. There's a bunch of smaller fires. And you just get that introduction of the movie of him just being like, holy shit, like, what the fuck just happened? By the way, would that even be possible that he could survive from something like that? Wouldn't a meteor of any magnitude leave quite a large blast radius that even if he didn't hit the impact of the comet or meteor, there would be, like, another layer of a radius that might just, like, the wind pushing you back and you hit the ground and smother in a million pieces? Am I overthinking this? Probably. That's what I love about talking about science-oriented movies. So, we then get later introduced to, by the way, I kind of love that David Duchovny, if he hadn't been on the X-Files, I don't think he would have been as iconic. Like, he for sure has done many roles that are not in science fiction. He's a good-looking guy, but there's a lot of talented people that are good-looking, and they just haven't been given their place to stand out. And yes, you could say, oh, he stands out in the X-Files. X-Files is big, so that's why he associates well with science fiction. But let's be real, he associated well with the X-Files, and the X-Files did well because it was this weird, like, match. It just made sense. So whenever he's in other films that involve some sort of creature feature or science or something like that, it's just like, I just feel at home. Hi, David Duchovny. Or Ira. A great name. And Ira and Orlando Jones, again, another amazing. These are all these, like, amazing actors you haven't thought about in a good 15 years, but you're like, fuck, they were so fun and good. I miss them. You know what I miss too? This is like a collection of actors that celebrities weren't quite what they are nowadays, in the sense that, like, we know everything they're thinking and saying. It builds up even more hype about them. Like, they could have a small following and there's, like, it feels like there's an even bigger cloud around them. Before it was just like, oh wow, I saw that person in the movie theaters. There they are. How crazy. Let me see if I can take a photo with them. But now it's like almost like godlike status. And that's obviously a huge detriment, because the beauty of these people was they were just kind of, I don't know, there's like more of a relatability not knowing every detail about their life, and they're not so, they're not going to ever be found in the headlines and so on and so forth. And because it was just a different time, you're able to like lose yourself in their already really great acting. Just kind of like a food for thought. Well, oh my god, I said I would stop saying that. Well, fuck it. That's my new thing. Food for thought. I'm just going to keep saying that. Lots of food, lots of thoughts. So anyways, Ira and Harry start to get involved with this piece of evidence from the meteor. They get involved. They even trick their way on there with some police officers. They bring a school trip there. It's so funny. And what's so interesting about it is, when they go there initially, the rock is already forming cave moss, which Ira points out right away is incredibly unusual, because, I mean, I'm not an expert in cave moss. Wouldn't that be funny? Like, what to watch now? Film reviewer, a critic, I'm not a fucking critic. Cave moss reviewer. But they're trying to say, like, it takes a long time, and they know for a fact this chunk of rock just landed. By the way, the rock already looks like a beautiful statue. For all the abstract statues that exist nowadays, we should totally have a statue that looks like that. That's shiny, beautiful. Oh, I love crystals and sparkly things. Oh, it would be beautiful. Right in the middle of a park with, kids happily running around the shiny rock. Probably would attract a lot of crows, though. It'd probably be detrimental to the bird population, or the people having to deal with the bird population. Oh, especially in Australia. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but I don't know if you know anything about this, but apparently magpies, which are not crows, but I guess you could say they're similar by the way they look and stuff like that. Anyways, magpies will, like, beat the shit out of you if you go near their, like, nesting grounds. And keep in mind, they nest in pretty public areas, so people will just be like, oh, there's an area where magpies are, don't go near there, because they dive down and with their really hard beaks try to, like, peck your skull out. And it's just like another fun wonder, a part of the beautiful continent of Australia. So anyways, Ira and Harry start getting involved. They notice the cave moss is growing at an alarming rate. When they chip into it, they notice that it's almost like bleeding, which is interesting. I thought that was a great choice of words, and they weren't assuming there was just like gushy liquid in there. Anyways, this continues to grow at such a rapid rate that what ends up happening is he collects a little small sample, and right before him on his magnifying glass, he is seeing the cells bud, and they split so fast, so rapidly, that it makes his little sample sized portion explode, because it's growing bigger than the little glass plate they're on. And when he tries to show his friend Harry, by the way, I love the little, like, joking, it's like subtle jokes, like where he's the coach of the volleyball, I think it is, girls team. It's not that it's funny he would be the coach, it's just the way he's it's like one of those like really subtle weird jokes where it's like, yeah, why did you insert this narrative in between the science and these weird monsters growing from the ground? Anyways, when he shows him it's starting to already form into like little life forms. It's growing even faster in just a few steps down the hall. So they bring their school team over there, and this is when we get our first little like plants, this beautiful yellow moss and these creepy little worms. Oh, these creepy little worms are super important. So right now, how we're starting out with Ira and Harry as like our main characters, they are already patting themselves on the back. They're thinking they're going to get a Nobel Peace Prize. They're excited. They're kind of getting all, pumped about this stuff. Meanwhile, we have little Wayne in the background trying to trying to get his firefighter, what would it be called? Like, get approved, his certificate, whatever it's called, to become a firefighter. It doesn't work out, unfortunately, for him. Poor guy fell asleep, probably being so stressed out about his car and the comet and everything like that. He's also working at a local a country club where he's getting shit on by the local yuppies, and he's so funny. I love him in that crazy hat. Like, I love when they announce that the guy who was being mean to him previously died, and he's just smiling and laughing with big teeth, and then he's like, oh, yeah, I'm upset. So he's got his own little life going on, And he's a great reflection of kind of like, we get to see other people's perspectives, but while the main cast is dealing with the actual problems of the creatures, we get these little snippets, these little insights of how the creatures are actually spreading out further, unbeknownst to the main scientists, out of the cave system. So we get a woman at one point who straight up gets eaten. I think it's either she gets fully eaten or a good chunk of her gets eaten by like an adorable fat little pug worm thing. Great little like moment of like, oh, he's so cute. Oh my god, he's carnivorous. We see a woman. Oh, one of my top favorite scenes. Like I said, my top 3 people being eaten scenes is the pterodactyl scene. I guess I could compare it to a pterodactyl. That's so funny. I also reviewed, when we talk about psychic weird connection to movies, I reviewed The Silence today, and I said that the vesps that they called their creatures were called, I considered them like vision impaired pterodactyls, basically. So funny, 2 movies involving pterodactyls today. Anyways, the pterodactyl scene when the woman's shoplifting, love it. And she keeps getting the knock on the door thinking she's being interrupted in the pursuit of her, like, crime. In the pursuit of her crime. When I get on this podcast, I just sound like such a whack job when I'm speaking. Anyways, she's trying to steal, and then the pterodactyl weird dinosaur thing steals her and carries her through the mall, and our beloved Wayne has to sing a song and soothe it to him. Anyways, so we get these little snippets of people being affected by the monsters, but Wayne is our connection to not only the rest of the civilization that's dealing with the outside people that have no idea what's going on or that anything's spreading or anything's happening at all. What ends up happening is his story and his narrative ends up being merged with the scientists. It's something I look back now, again, it's like, you know what's really fun about this podcast? Like, I've always loved movies, and I for sure notice things, but when you are forced to talk about them, and you are watching these movies over time, you start to, just make more and more and more connections and realize that even the silliest, dumbest movies, there's a lot going on. Which is so fun because it makes you not only enjoy and appreciate the movie more, but it makes you sit back and be like, maybe we were all a little too harsh with our criticism. Maybe people, maybe movies weren't as throwaway as we thought or as, like poorly put together. Maybe there was thought and maybe certain ideas just didn't get executed because either by the director or there was a shitty actor or something like that. So anyways, he's our connection basically between the civilization and just like the common everyday man's reactions and the people who actually understand the magnitude of these cells repopulating and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, Harry and Ira's situation they don't get to keep maintaining control over because the government gets involved. Woo! Super fun! Our OG evil man himself, Ted Levine, or General Woodman, gets involved and they like dome it off with this crazy like futuristic home you'd probably see in your suggestion bars on YouTube. And they also have involved Julianne Moore. Again, like there's so many iconic people in this. Julianne Moore, aka Allison, another scientist working on the team, and they've kind of kicked out Ira and Harry from the situation. And to be honest with you, I get that completely. Later, they're going to introduce the governor and get some political parties involved. And we're going to get into that and how I don't think that would, like, ever really happen, if I'm being honest with you. But it makes sense they kicked out Ira and Harry. But Ira and Harry, of course, are really fucking pissed because they're the ones that actually know how it all started. They even get their information stolen, which is, like, bullshit. So it makes complete sense when they sneak on to the government facility and they're like, we're going to get our motherfucking sample. I want to be like, Ira, Harry, realistically, what are you going to do after you have the sample? Like, who are you going to privately contact? And at this day and age, God knows how long the FBI has been, like, monitoring and putting in little, like, listening devices. You don't think that their classes and homes aren't bugged at this point and they won't stop you in your pursuit of trying to show people this evidence? So just pointing that out, guys. Not a lot of, but then again, I guess people weren't as well educated about how much like the government wasn't your shit at that point. Something I want to interject at this point, it doesn't really go along with what I'm saying at this moment, but I just want to say it anyways before I forget. At this time, it was 2001, which is crazy to think. It was so long ago. But again, like I said with the whole fame thing, it was just a different time period. So you have actors like David Duchovny and Julianne Moore and so on and so forth who are very well known, who have done more serious stuff. And I would include The X-Files as more serious. You know, there was no humor in that show. And people who are winning Emmys and so on and so forth, working on weird, wacky projects like this. So you have their caliber. Let's be real. I think what makes someone a star is more than just their talent. It's their talent. It's their likability factor. It's this like special charm about them that makes you lose yourself in their character. And we're lucky enough to have people that are this talented, but then they are working on something as goofy as this movie. It was a great time. I hope one day this concept comes back. So anyways, Ira and Harry, after they break into the government facility and get their little sample, that kind of bites them in the ass, literally. When they go down there, which I can't even believe they went down there. Okay, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. You are going to go down and you're going to get a sample, but you have the knowledge and the background education. You're smart enough to be aware of what possibly could be out down there. And you just go down there with no guns, just a little hazmat suit and a box. And they even see some creatures that walk by that are very tall, this like weird think of a centipede, but like 1,000 times larger with like giraffe legs. So kind of goofy, but you're also in a position where you're like, is it venomous? Will it eat me? Is it aggressive by nature? And they're just down there pretending it's their own personal zoo. I mean, like, if that's not idiocy or being unaware, I'm not sure what is, but it doesn't make sense with them. But on one hand, I get the whole idea that they want to go down and get their samples. So that's motivation enough. And a mosquito breaks its way in and unfortunately goes into Harry's leg. I cannot even imagine how fucking painful that was, crawling in between the layers of your muscle and skin. And I love that bonding moment where, like, Allison has been kind of butting heads with Ira at this point and many other people. But at that moment, Allison's holding Harry's hand, Ira's holding Harry's hand, and they're just together giving him support as this thing is going to potentially come out of its butt. Thankfully, he lives through that moment and the jig is kind of up. But above anything, it starts to open a conversation because everyone's aware of the situation, and as more and more mishaps starting, more and more aliens start popping up out of areas, you kind of put your differences aside of like who discovered what first, and you're just starting to think about like, oh shit, we have pterodactyls in a mall. We have a fat worm eating a woman in her own home. They start to realize that these creatures aren't contained, which it's like, you know, again, this is the most like haphazard, shittiest, most hilarious government facility that they wouldn't think of closing off the external cave systems. Like, isn't that kind of how every cave works? Why wouldn't you put up giant metal barriers like you did over the one hole and you created a little opening? I mean, the tunnels branch off. Do you think it's just going to go underground? Doesn't that mean more creatures then can exist underground and you don't even know what they're evolving into? So, when they're realizing this, it starts to get really serious. And the governor has to be called in. Who, again, like I said, remember I said, like, very well-known actors are getting involved in this point? I mean, fuck, Ty Burrell from Modern Family is in this. But the governor is played by Dan, I'm going to say his name incorrectly, Dan Aykroyd? Fuck, how do you fucking say his name? You know him. He's from, like, the Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, shit like that. By the way, if you enjoy this movie, fun fact, the director is Ivan Reitman. And he was the producer for Ghostbusters. So I think that shows, like, he had a clear idea of what people want from kind of like a paranormally ghosty horror type of film that is predominantly comedic. Like, he knows what's up is what I'm trying to say, which is pretty impressive, because being a producer and being a director are very different things, and I thought this was a very well directed movie. The timing was out of this world, because, like, again, being a producer is more like almost being an editor. Sometimes it is a lot easier. Like, I'm not trying to insert myself in the narrative, but, like, here I am, hello. But, like, I would say I'm pretty good at giving critiques to music. My boyfriend and I both make music, but he primarily, like, he pursues it more, and he's very, very talented. But whenever he makes music, if I'm critiquing, if he wants my input, I'm able to, like, exactly pinpoint what should be changed and how. And it's easy when you're already working with gold, because he's very talented, but it's easy when something already exists. But it's a whole other avenue to create something. And that's what being a director is. Thinking of the initial shot, not editing it later. So now the governor gets involved. Governor Lewis, played by Dan. And this is one of my favorite moments. Not only for its shock and awe, but I absolutely love this creature. It's probably the selling point of why you should go check out Evolution, besides the golf course and the pterodactyl mall scene. But this moment is kind of interesting and important to talk about, because I want to talk about for a hot second if this would actually happen. So they tell the governor about what's happening, how serious it is, that at the rate that they're evolving and reproducing on their own by budding, that in 3 days, 3 motherfucking days, the state's going to be taken over. So they got to do something tomorrow. And I think they even said, like, in 2 months, the entire world would be taken over, as it would just reproduce, because they're getting smarter and they're becoming more involved, where they could even go through water and travel, and definitely get to different continents and stuff like that. So it's very serious. But I want to talk about the idea of, would the governor ever be brought in on a discussion like that? You'd think so, but no, I don't think so at all. If you're actually interested in why I'm for sure think this wouldn't be the case, you should check out another wonderful documentary that's on Netflix right now called Unacknowledged. It's kind of fucking crazy, because I was someone who did not believe in aliens. I kind of went back and forth with it. I wasn't quite sure. But this gentleman who has something like insane, I think something about 5 or 7 different full-on degrees. He has a PhD in many different backgrounds. He's a very intelligent man who, what I'm saying is, he's mentally sound. He ended up throughout his career slowly building a connection and relationship with tons of different people in the government, from the CIA to the FBI. And in the documentary, they interview something like 40 or 50 different people that had extremely high up positions in the government and military that you would have probably never heard of, but they control a lot of our safety or decision making. And these people, again, of complete sound in mind and the type of background where if they said something like this, it would put their reputation at stake. So why would they fucking make this up? Full on admitting that, yep, they've met aliens. Yep, they've seen UFOs. Yep, we have information on it. Yep, the government hides it. And they went into a lot of detail in the documentary about how, keep in mind, by the way, in this documentary, it's not even just purely the word of these people. They have actual evidence. It's crazy. They even go into, like, the assassination of JFK and, like, Marilyn Monroe, but, like, that's a whole nother story. Anyway, when they're talking about this, they talked about how it is, like, imperative that the president doesn't know, because they imply that the president would be, quote-unquote, taken care of, very mafia style, allegedly. I'm just going to put this out there, allegedly. In the documentary, it says this, that they would take care of him, so they just don't let the president know any of this type of information, even though many presidents have asked, wanted to be involved, and they're basically like, you don't need to know. So it's crazy. The governor, someone small time like that, he would not know about aliens. They would definitely keep that. They would just make decisions and do it without him and be like, honey, you're signing off on this paper whether you like it or not, or we're taking your job away. So I just want to point out the practicalities of that funny matter. But anyways, he has this serious moment. He's just been informed how serious it is. And if they couldn't make it, like, he believes them at this point. He's aware. He's seen the evidence. But if he needed any more proof, a blue gorilla that is not unlike the creatures from the Time Machine, or there's another great movie with blue gorillas. I can't fucking think of it off the top of my head. But blue gorillas with these crazy alien eyes and these enormous long teeth. And they almost look Skeletor with their rib cage being super predominant and having like a really tiny waist, but these giant arms, and they just fucking pop intelligently, I want to point out, knock out all the cameras, and then make their way up through the airlocks, and then pop out in a place the people didn't even anticipate. Like, that is next level scary intelligence, that they even understood what the cameras represented, and how to tactilely go about attacking the people they wanted to steal. I mean, they took a guy. They took him. They ate him. Like, a lot of people died. This is very much like an episode of Supernatural. I always joke in Supernatural that, like, 3 people have to die for anything to get solved. And this is very much the Supernatural law book happening right now. So they, the gorilla a bunch of gorillas come out and attack everybody, and they're able to get rid of them and get them out of this situation. But they're aware of, like, okay, this is not cool anymore. Not only are these just creatures, and I think it's just hard, like example, we live in modern day and we have cars and a lot of other stuff and systems, but like, if a lion got out, like, have you ever seen that video of when I think it's either a jaguar or a leopard, like a wild one, gets out into a resort in India? I think it's India. Could be Bangladesh. I think it's India. And it's just mayhem. People are being attacked. I mean, what can they do? It's not a lack of technology. It's like, it's a fucking creature. So I think at that point, the creature itself alone is enough to be like, this is a problem. But the fact that they're getting really smart and understanding how they can go about taking out humans, even though they barely understand technology, that's terrifying. That's next level insane. So there's a disagreement of how they're going to take care of the problem. And this is one of those great, weird, over-the-top, like, basically fart poop humor at the very end of it. The government is an idiot, and they kick all the scientists out, which, like, isn't that, again, so how it is? And they kick out all the smart people, all the bullies kick out the nerds, and they decide to take care of it by just blowing it up. They think they know it all, which, again, is so stupid. I don't think that would actually happen in real life, because as much as, I can't speak for other countries, but, like, America is very quick to being at arms, it isn't a question of just, like, if that could affect the land or the people around it, because they evacuate those people. It's more of a question of, like, understanding how to go about it and testing everything, and the other scientists do. They end up testing it and discovering that this creature's, like, oxygen, or the thing that helps it grow the most, is warmth. So if you filled it up, or fire, if you filled it up with this jet engine, this missile, whatever, you're subsequently feeding it. Oh, not unlike The Fifth Element. Oh my gosh, I just did a review of that, like, yesterday. In that one, the black mass dubbed Shadow, if it ate any energy at all, it started off with missiles, coincidentally, it would grow. It fed off of it. So it's very similar like this. And what's so interesting is this brings up the idea of evolution. So whenever we think of little creatures or think of evolution, it always kind of becomes very prehistoric looking, which is ironic. I wonder if we just think that it's like a full never-ending cycle, like we'll become dinosaurs again, and then we'll become humans again, and it will just go on and on and on. But more so, you always think of at least legs and arms and a face. There's always some sort of practicality. But in reality, if we were going to keep evolving, I think it would get more ambiguous, more bizarre. That's why a lot of people have realized that if we were to evolve, or if there's aliens out there, there would be some sort of sentience that would start to go into energy levels or telepathic communication. It would go on in that way. In this, when they go to blow up the cave system, it blows up all right, but unfortunately, there's an enormous explosion. I don't know if it comes specifically just from the shiny cosmic rock, but this cosmic rock ends up getting activated, and any possible blue monkey, pterodactyl, or weird carnivorous worm or alligator just gets eaten up in a moment, and it creates this weird giant version of the cell that existed in the glass, which, you know, I again, this goes back to the idea of, it's like you evolve so far and you start from the beginning. It really goes back to that idea, to be honest with you, with, like, it goes into spirituality even. We always talk about everything being a circle. In alchemy, again, if you want to be into this cool type of shit, check out my other podcast, Mystery Storytime Podcast. But in the alchemist kind of, alphabet, there is something called the Ouroboros, and it is a snake consuming its tail, and it's the representation of life, death, and just the constant rebirth and cycle of it all. And so that's just a theory on how we die, but think about where we go emotionally. It's like we take so much, we work so hard to get to a simplified state and understand everything and then get calm, but something kind of rattles, we get nervous again, and we start all over again. It's a constant flow with our feelings. It's a constant flow in realization. It's like all this information seems so complicated, and then you figure out enough that it becomes more simplified. You understand it singularly. But then once you understand that, and that it's just a piece of a larger puzzle, that journey through education starts all over again. And so it goes through spirituality, life and death, education, and this regards just life itself and how it's evolving. So it started as this little kind of webby, almost octopusy little, oh my god, did I just say octopusy? Scandalous. This little molecule, and it looks like a larger version of it, with a vagina, with a giant quaking hole that farts. So this is where it all comes together. The civilian Wayne, who they've kind of been hanging out with, given great hilarious commentary the whole way, is a firefighter. Technically, he has access to that stuff. And I think he actually does end up getting his license or whatever at some point in the movie, so good for him. And also, the dumb students I forgot to mention in the very beginning that got a C- for not seeming as educated, they give the scientists the answer because they have off their head, they are able to be aware of a certain ingredient that would be the thing that would kill the alien, and they are just suddenly aware of that it's in Pantene conditioner, and that if they got a lot of Pantene conditioner, it would kill this thing. So the people that were dumb in the beginning end up being the solution holders at the end. Then Wayne, a random civilian who just kind of joined part of this party, he ends up getting inserted with the team. I'm so sorry, I'm tripping over my words. He ends up having the firefighter truck and access and ability to carry all that conditioner, shampoo, and take all them out. And everyone, including the scientist, without the permission of the government, gets in there. And after they've blown up the missile and you've got this huge, giant monster stomping around, I wonder if it had any sentience, or if it was just kind of being born for the first time, looking around. Like, I wonder if any of these creatures looked around for the first time in the first couple minutes they were alive and just took it all in. Because think about it, when you're born as a baby, that's pretty probably traumatic, so we don't remember any of that shit. We don't have enough brain cells to fathom anything. These things are being born with like a pretty high IQ just immediately, and having to process everything. It's like every superhero Marvel movie of a creature, of an alien being born, like Vision or something like that. So they shoot the alien through its butthole. Again, these are predominantly well-known Emmy Award-winning actors with conditioner, and it successfully farts and blows up everywhere, and it's a glorious moment of success and very I don't know, in your head, you have to be playing the song, America, fuck yeah, coming to blow up a motherfucking alien. And they blow it up successfully. And it ends beautifully with everyone kind of getting a cute happy ending. Lots of jokes out there. Honestly, it's just glorious and beautiful and weird. And no one really ends with... No one questions, like, what if another, comet comes? Maybe it was thrown to us on purpose. That's a thought I've never considered. That maybe an alien, like a big one, as a cosmic joke, made a bet with his other alien friend, and he was like, let's just watch mayhem ensue on this planet, and threw like a tiny piece of his fingernail into our rock, and it just, like, they're just having a good laugh somewhere. You never know. They're just, but we're small, simple-minded creatures compared to them, I guess, in the whole grand scheme of things. It makes me think of that amazing Twilight Zone episode where the two men, the astronauts, land on the planet, and they accidentally find a really tiny civilization of small people. Do you know what I'm talking about? And the one guy, like, goes crazy with the small, like, people worshiping him, and they build a statue, and I think they take him down or something like that. It doesn't matter. Anyways, evolution's fucking amazing, so fun to talk about, and I'm sure you love it as much as me, or you will love it. Either way, I did not spoil any of the jokes or any of the fun. You're gonna love it. But if you enjoyed this and you want to talk about more creature feature stuff with me, and I've got some really cool stuff planned, but you gotta sign up for my Patreon, so please feel free to support me so I can actually have an actual couch to sit on and talk to you guys. Either way, I love you in the most platonic way possible. Please do not forget to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Bye!